What if every struggle in your life was something you chose before you were even born? I know that sounds wild, but think about it for a second. Have you ever looked at your life, all the struggles, the weird detours, the surprising moments of joy, and felt like there has to be a bigger story here? What if there is a story and you're the one who wrote it? This is a spiritual way of looking at life. The idea is that before you were even born, your soul chose this exact journey. Every challenge was a lesson you handpicked. Every beautiful moment was something you intentionally built in. Is there scientific proof for this? No. This isn't something you can measure in a lab, but versions of this idea show up in spiritual traditions all over the world, and for a lot of people, it turns pain into something that at least has a purpose. So for the next few minutes, let's just play with that idea. If your soul chose this life, what might you be here to learn? For this to make any sense, there's one key concept, something called the veil of forgetting. In this spiritual framework, when you're born, you don't just show up here with full memory of who you are and why you came. You pass through a kind of veil. You forget the plan. And that's not seen as a mistake. It's part of the design. Because if you remembered everything, every lesson, every contract, every outcome, life would feel like reading a book you already finished. The forgetting is what makes your choices real. It's what makes growth something you actually have to earn. Again, this is a spiritual idea, not a scientific claim, but it gives us a really interesting way to think about why life can feel so confusing and yet strangely meaningful at the same time. So imagine this. Before you were born, there's a kind of planning room. In that space, your soul can see the bigger picture. It knows what it's already learned and what it still wants to understand more deeply. Maybe it wants to learn forgiveness. Maybe it wants to experience real self-worth. Maybe it wants to finally know what unconditional love feels like, not as a concept, but as something lived. In this view, coming to Earth is like enrolling in the most intense school there is. This is where the idea of soul contracts comes in. These are seen as agreements you make with other souls before you're born. You'll help them grow, they'll help you grow. So that parent who shaped you in a big way, the friend who always shows up, the partner who broke your heart, in this framework, they might not be random. They might be souls you actually chose to trigger the exact lessons you wanted to learn. None of this shows up in a science textbook, but as a way of finding meaning, it can be powerful. So how does this soul plan show up down here in real life? Maybe you've always felt like an outsider, like you never fully fit in anywhere. From this perspective, your soul might have chosen that to teach you how to rely on your own inner compass instead of other people's approval. Maybe your career has been one long series of false starts and frustrations. Spiritually, that might be less about bad luck and more about pushing you to finally ask, what am I actually here to do? Even things like financial struggles, illness, or heartbreak get reframed, not as punishments, but as intense lessons about resilience, trust, boundaries, or self-love. This perspective doesn't sugarcoat your pain. It doesn't say, this isn't hard. It just gives that pain a different context. That nagging feeling that something is off, that sense of this can't be all there is, some people think of that as soul dissonance. It's like your inner GPS saying, hey, this isn't the path we planned. Let's course correct. And the key thing here is free will. Even if your soul chose the curriculum, you still decide how you respond to it. When you start looking at your life this way, that's what a lot of people call an awakening. You stop seeing everything as pure randomness. You start asking different questions. Instead of, why is this happening to me? You start asking, if I chose this, what was I trying to learn here? You don't have to believe this literally for it to be helpful. It's a question that shifts you from feeling powerless to feeling like an active participant in your own story. You can try it right now. Think about one big challenge in your life, just one. And instead of replaying how unfair it is, ask, if my soul chose this, what quality was I trying to build? What wisdom was I trying to gain? You might be surprised by what comes up. At the end of the day, the idea that your soul chose this journey is a belief. It's not something science has proven. Yes, there are researchers looking into things like past life memories, but nothing that says you definitely scripted this life. Still, for a lot of people, this way of seeing things brings real peace. It suggests you didn't come here just to suffer. You came here to grow, to turn experience into wisdom. So if this resonates with you, try living for a while as if your soul chose this. See what changes. Because if you are the one who wrote this story, then the next chapter is still being written by you.